So what do we do with that information once we've got it? So what we did was we created a way of looking at how to come up with a score for each strand. So some of our strands have 4 performance expectations. Some of them have 3 performance expectations. On the ones that have 4 performance expectations, if a principal is going to be marked highly effective, they have to be highly effective on at least 3 performance expectations. That says indicators. We're going to change that. And there has to be no rating below effective on any indicator. So in other words, they have to have 3 out of 4 that are highly effective, and the other one can't be below effective in order for them to be highly effective. In order to be effective, they have to be at least effective on 3, and there has to be no rating below marginally effective. So they can have 3 effective and 1 marginally effective, or 3 effective and 1 highly effective, but they can't have 3 effective and 1 not effective and be marked effective. They would be marked as marginally effective. So marginally effective says that they're at least marginally effective on at least 3 indicators, on 3 performance expectations. Now, one of those performance expectations could be marked highly effective, or it could be effective, or it could be not effective. But if 3 of them are marked at least marginally effective, then that person is marginally effective. So let's say that they have 2 that are marginally effective and 2 that are effective. Well, they'd be marginally effective because in order to be marked effective, they have to have 3 performance expectations that are marked effective. Not effective, they're marked not effective on at least 2 indicators. If that's the case, then they are not effective, and therefore they have performance that cannot be allowed to continue. You can see the same kind of thing for those with 3 performance indicators. So that's the way you score the strands. Well, then in order to get to the overall rating for the entire leadership practice component, the performance component, this is what you would do. So you would then take those scores from the strands and you would say, if this principal is highly effective, they have to be highly effective on at least 5 strands. They can't have any rating below effective. If they're effective on 5 strands. They have no rating below marginally effective. If they're marginally effective, they're at least marginally effective on at least 5 strands. And if they are not effective, then they are not effective on at least 4 strands. Now that math may not work out all the way. We're not sure. We may find out that our math doesn't quite work out, and if that's the case, we will make adjustments. But at this point, that's the way we're looking at it. So a principal then who is effective has 5 strands that they are highly effective on, that they're effective on. And let's say they have one that's marginally effective and one that's highly effective. They would be marked as effective for the entire leadership practice component. All right. So that's the way that works. Are there any questions or thoughts about anything so far? Sorry, I'm going to take a drink because my throat's getting kind of dry. One thing that I do want to point out is that this year, what we're really looking at is any districts that are going to use this for the rest of this school year. It's kind of a pilot year, kind of a validation year, and we're going to be working through some kinks because we know that there are some, and we'll make adjustments and modifications during the summer so that the system is up and ready to go by next year. And then when we run it next year, at the end of the year, we'll be doing a validation study to ensure that it does give us valid results. So let's go from there. Okay. So I don't see any questions or any thoughts. So I'm just going to move on. So one of the things that we thought about, and this is something that's being done in other states and has been done in some of our school districts for educator evaluation. So we're proposing that you may want to think about, and this is not necessary, you may want to think about using what we're calling a 3-cubed rating system. So what that basically says is, most LEAs, we have principals who are being summatively evaluated once every 3 years. We know they're getting a formative evaluation in the other 2 years, but they're having a summative evaluation once every 3 years. So during that 3-year cycle, here's what we might do. So in year 1, we would do a formative evaluation on 2 strands. So say, for example, we may want to do teaching and learning and school management for learning. And then, but we would also include the school improvement strand because that is one of the high leverage strands. So we're going to look at that every year. So that makes 3 strands. Since the school improvement strand is critical, we do that all 3 years. The next year, we would choose 2 different strands, say ethics and ethical behavior and equity in education. We would choose those 2 and the school improvement plan. And then in the 3rd year, we would do the 2 strands that hadn't been done yet, plus the school improvement strand. So by the end of the 3rd year, the principal will have been evaluated and coached through all 7 strands and with a special emphasis on that school improvement strand. Now, what is the purpose of that? The purpose of that is to have better conversations with principals and to focus on different areas of principal practice during the course of each year so that you can have more substantive conversations and better professional growth, continuous growth. We know from research that if people are working on more than 3 goals during the course of the year, they tend to get confused and sidelined, and they just don't ever make the progress that they ought to make. So we're suggesting that you work on 3 strands as their 3 goals for that year, and then you would have the opportunity of having focus, of having conversations, of having joint observations, of looking at the evidence for all of those things, and then being able to do that in smaller chunks. And then that summative evaluation in the 3rd year would consist of whatever the scores were for the 3 standards from this year and this year and this year, with the school improvement strand being averaged over the 3 years, or looking at the school improvement strand in the 3rd year as you've seen improvement over the course of the years.